Before embarking on his way back home to Ithaca, Odysseus and Circe talk in Aea. Here, Circe tells him how to protect himself against the sirens, and then his choices throughout his journey home. His first choice is between two different groups of cliffs. One are deadly cliffs, called the Clashing Rocks by gods. Whenever anyone passes, the rocks press together. Birds could not pass through them unharmed, and only the Argoas survived passing, and that was only because Hera cared for the captain, Jason. Odysseus or his crew would not be able to survive these cliffs. His other choice is made up of two cliffs. If he chooses this, he will have another choice as to which of the two cliffs he travels through. Circe explains that under one of these cliffs is a deadly whirlpool, Charybdis. It draws in and spews out massive amounts of water 3 times a day. No god could save Odysseus and his crew from it. The other cliff is so smooth and tall that he couldn't even hope of climbing over it. In it dwells Scylla, a terrible monster with 12 legs and 6 heads. Scylla will eat at least 6 of Odysseus's men, but if he calls out for Scylla's mother, she might stop her from taking 6 more. Circe advises Odysseus to choose Scylla's path, since he won't survive the Clashing Rocks or Charybdis. If he chooses Scylla's path, he will only lose 6 men. She says that it's better to mourn 6 men's deaths than to lose his whole ship and crew. Circe also reiterates Tiresias' earlier warning to Odysseus in Book 11. This was that if Odysseus travels to the island of Thrinacia, where the sun god Hyperion's sacred immortal cattle dwell, and harms any of the cattle, he will be shipwrecked, and even if he manages to survive, he will return home in sorrow from the loss of all his comrades. Odysseus considers Circe's warnings, so after he passes the sirens, he chooses the path of Scylla. Scylla eats Odysseus' 6 best men. They leave behind Scylla and Charybdis. They see the island of Thrinacia. Although Odysseus remembers Circe's warning not to stop on the island, his friend and fellow shipmate, Eurylochus, begs him to let them stop for just 1 night, since they have just lost 6 crewmates. Odysseus allows, but on the oath that they will not kill any sheep or cow. They all agree and land on Thrinacia with the intent to stay for only 1 night, until a month-long storm hits the island. The crew makes do with the prepared food that Circe had given them, until it runs out. When Odysseus leaves the crew to play to the gods, he falls asleep. Without his watch, Eurylochus speaks to his fellow crewmates and persuades them that it is worse for a man to die of starvation than to die out in sea. He tells them that if they return to Ithaca, they will worship and give sacrifices to Hyperion. So with no food left, the crew decides to feast on the finest of the cattle. As soon as he hears the news of the killing of his immortal cattle, Hyperion asks Zeus to punish Odysseus. Zeus does this by finally lifting the storm. Odysseus and his crew leave first thing on the island, but just shortly after they set sail, Zeus creates a mighty storm and destroys the ship's mast and all of the crew, except for Odysseus. Odysseus drove the ship on and was carried by the sea back to the cliffs of Scylla and Charybdis. The ship goes through and is destroyed by Charybdis, but just before, Odysseus managed to hold on to a fig tree's branch and save himself from being swallowed by Charybdis as well. Alone and shipless, Odysseus wandered the seas for 9 days until he settled on Ogygia and was cared for by Calypso.